Well, it's finally here. This is it, the New Zealand budget from New Zealand's Conservative coalition government. It's been handed down. It's their second budget, but spending is limited, and the Finance Minister has dubbed it a no BS budget with the lowest operating allowance in a decade. The Defence Force is a big winner here. The plan is to double spending by 2033 to 2% of GDP. The country will buy new Navy helicopters and replace the 757s used to transport the Prime Minister overseas. They're also used for cargo and troop movements. They're infamous for breaking down and stranding PMs, so no more. $183 million over 4 years for co-investment in new gas fields.
Kiwis, I am holding Maui #1 crude oil. 1969. Because this budget is the real oil. $200 million dedicated to accelerate, de-risk, enable your nation, our country, fellow MPs to take a cornerstone in recovering a foundation industry destroyed by the last regime. With your blessings, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to take the lid off and invite the Green Party to sniff it.
Businesses will receive a tax incentive that allows them to deduct 20% off the cost of new assets. There's also a cash boost to attract foreign film makers as well, and private schools will get an 11% yearly funding increase.
This budget supports the economic recovery while also taking a longer-term view, with initiatives to boost investment, growth and savings. Kiwis have been battling through an extended period of high inflation, high interest rates and low growth. Times are still tough for many. The good news is that strong economic and fiscal management is ensuring a recovery is underway, supported by lower interest rates and a strong export performance. This budget builds on that.
New Zealand's super scheme, Kiwi Saver, is being changed. The scheme is currently optional, but if you opt in, the minimum contribution for both the employer and the employee is 3%. That totals 6%. There's a new change that will raise that by 1% to a 4% minimum for both the employee and the employer. That deadline is by 2028. That's a total of 8%. That'll happen in stages as well. The government contribution has also halved to save them money. A loser here is public broadcaster RNZ. They'll have their budget cut by $16.5 million over 4 years, and cuts to the pay equity scheme have funded this budget by the tune of $11 billion in savings over the forecast period. They raised the scheme's eligibility. It allowed female workers to raise a claim that could force employers to pay them more, arguing that they were financially undervalued compared to men. You can see protests here happening on Thursday, the opposition saying that this essentially means a pay cut for women.
This was a scramble without the lollies. That's right. A budget that has scrambled the government's finances, tried a whole lot of smoke and mirrors to hide where their cuts are being made, and to try and confuse New Zealanders with the idea that they'll be better off when, for a lot of Kiwi families, this budget is nothing but bad news. This is the budget that will be remembered as the budget that left women out. This is the budget that said to working Kiwi women, they are worth less. In fact, nearly $3 billion a year less.
All right, let's get some analysis on the New Zealand budget now. Infometrics Principal Economist Brad Olsen, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
What's your first reaction to this budget?
Look, the government had a very narrow way that it had to try and work through Budget 2025. A lot of spending commitments it wanted to make, but just not a lot of fiscal room to manoeuvre. And so we have seen in what I am terming the switch-it budget, where the government is having to find a lot of savings to pay for these new initiatives. So while you're getting some with one hand, you're having it taken away with the other.
Was there anything that surprised you about those reprioritisations and cuts?
I mean, we knew that pay equity was going to be the big conversation for the reprioritisations. The government spending, finding nearly $13 billion worth of original spending that was going to go on pay equity. Now, of course, that's been changed out and there isn't quite as much being left in the system. I guess so, looking at some of the big priorities the government did want to try and move forward with, particularly trying to stimulate a bit more growth in the economy. They have been able to achieve that with the investment boost scheme that will see a greater level of investment coming through from businesses, and our Treasury expects that to bring forward something like a whole percentage point of additional GDP growth over the next 20 years, front-loaded, of course, over the next few. So definitely some bigger moves that the government is trying to achieve, but some bigger sacrifices that have to be made at the same time.
All right, when we look at the bigger picture with New Zealand's economy, the recovery is happening slower, but it's being driven by foreign trade. There's a big push in this budget as well for foreign investment. Do you see that working?
At the moment, we have got some pretty good investment returns coming through, and increasingly that trade profile that New Zealand has is achieving better things. Our farmers are doing better. Dairy prices, meat prices, fruit prices, all across the board are continuing to improve. So we are seeing a primary sector-led recovery, but as interest rates come down, that will stimulate a bit more household spending as well. The challenge, of course, that the Treasury has outlined is that the global operating environment is going to be a whole lot trickier. Trade growth is not going to be as strong, so we will have to be fighting here in New Zealand a whole lot stronger to keep it moving, to keep those trade gains at an elevated level. And I think looking through the numbers, what's clear is that although the economic recovery is emerging, it's slower, more sluggish than we would hope for.
Okay, Brad Olsen, thank you for that analysis.